we're in Louisiana, we've done all our research, we get to this point, there may be more information in military listings, land sales and such. I haven't really found anything that was overwhelming. In 2004, Miss Bertha and heads out to the Canaries, where she meets a researcher, and before she publishes her book, she goes around the islands collecting lots of information about the Dominguez family and uncovers something. She uses Manuel and Juana's name, and this researcher helps her to find lots of information. Up to this point, there was already several books. There was one by Gerald Domingue, is that correct? As well as by Edward Domingue. People are familiar with these. Those are good books. Unfortunately, all the information is from Louisiana, from what I can tell. I didn't see anything in those books beyond the ships. It's everything. Those are excellent volumes. I definitely recommend them. I don't want to make them insignificant. However, they didn't help me in what I was trying to present for today. It turns out what Bertha did was take a lot of that information and move beyond the ships and find out where our ancestors come from. So her book is very good. She has a copy of it today. I highly recommend if you're interested in this family, you use it as a great source to go find all the primary sources. She references the churches and the civil locations where you can find these civil records, municipalities and such. There's a tremendous amount of material that was new to the family as of 2004. I'm not going to spend a lot of time detailing everything in her book. We don't have that much time today. She uncovers that the family is from an area of Tenerife known as Real de Abajo in Tenerife. Notice where it's on the north side of the island. It's an entire region that slopes down from a volcanic mountain. As you can see in the top left, that's highlighted as well, where that area is. And at the bottom, I want you to pay close attention to a few towns that are listed here on that north side. One is La Oroteva. There's the region of Los Realos, which is both Realos de Abajo and Realos de Alto. In other words, the upper and the lower. We also have a town known as San Juan de la Ramba and Ico del Vinos. I do not understand what Ico is. And from a friend of mine in the Canaries, she explained that it's actually native. They don't even know what that is. There's some mystery to what Ico is. Like the natives are known as Icodians or Icodianos or something. What's that?
The gaunch is, that's a gaunch word.
Is it a gaunch word? Okay.
Icod is a gaunch word.
Okay. And so, again,
of
course it's wine, naturally. Yeah. So,
lots and lots of wine.
So it's wine of the natives, I assume. That's the best I can come up with as far as that name is concerned. These are some old pictures, believed taken roughly around the turn of the century of Rialto. Gives me a very good idea of what my ancestors would have seen if they were walking around the town. I like this because it's the closest I can get to actually feeling like I'm back in time. As you can see, there's mountains in the background, sloping, a lot of agriculture. The villages slope down the mountain, as you can see here. If we were flying in a helicopter, we would take a look at Tenerife and we would approach it. And this is the north side of the island. You can see how wide it is and how remote out there it can be. And down at the bottom is actually the north side. So we're coming in from the north. And if I zoom in and fly in a little closer, we can see on the left side a little valley that slopes down into the coast, and that's Los Realos. What you'll also notice on the right side is this foot of a plateau sticking out on the far right. This is known as Cale el Alance. Is that how they pronounce it, Father? Okay. And Ico el Alto on the further right side of that plateau. We're very interested in those two areas there. This is a zoomed in area of both of those. Cale el Alance, as it slopes down into that valley, and then the plateau, the larger plateau on the right side. And this is just another aerial shot of that same plot of land on the coast, as you can see. And then if I zoom in on Cale el Alance, it's going to be right there, front and center. If we go a little bit further to the right, there is Ico de los Vinos, that we've spoken of. It's also in a valley of sorts that slopes down into the coast. Just different shots of that. So what we determined in 2004 from Bertha's book is that Manuel Dominguez, he's born in Real de Abajo in 1717. In her book, she actually has a picture of the record. So if you want to see the actual Spanish record, you can look in her books and see what they look like. Juana Francisco Dominguez is born in San Juan de la Rambla, not very far away, I said 1759. That date is wrong. They're married in 1759 is what I meant to put there. Turns out all their children are born in Higo de El Alto. And it's the starting point to find all of our other ancestors. We want to look in this area here. And here's another shot of San Juan de la Rambla, all on the northern coast. And I believe that's the little community that you see down there at the bottom, the main part of the town. And so we begin. Turns out she finds Manuel's parents. Doesn't take very long. We find out there's a marriage certificate located in the archives in the Church of the Conception in Real de Abajo. And she determines that from this record, that they list both of the parents and the location of where they're living, their residence. Since both are Dominguez, the certificate mentions that they were given a dispensation by the bishop, since they were cousins.
They were second cousins.
And both cousins on their Hernandez side, as well as the Dominguez side. So it happened twice. Turns out Manuel's baptism confirms these parents' names, and their children's baptisms confirm because they list grandparents' names. So all of these tie in together. Manuel did have brothers, Diego and Francisco, and there's no record of them ever coming to Louisiana. From there, we look at Juan Dominguez, and we see his records, and it turns out we find some information about him. He's married to Maria Hernandez. At this point, so she finds Juan Dominguez. It turns out he's a junior. Apparently he's got a father. They don't list junior or senior in the records, but I'm going to refer to them as that so we don't get confused. Turns out his father was also Juan Dominguez. He was married to a Maria Louise Hernandez. And at this point, we find their records, birth records, marriage records, burial records for her. That's also located in the parish archives of the Church of the Conception. We list the parents of both spouses. They too were given a dispensation by the bishop, and Maria's burial certificate is located also in those archives. We go a little further, and she determines that Juan Dominguez Sr. parents are Asensio Dominguez and Marie Louise, or Louise. I believe it's Lewis. I believe that's actually her last name there. The marriage certificate located in the parish archives of also the Church of Conception. And they list the spouses and places of residence. And so we only find their marriage certificate. It's what Bertha finds. From that point on, it turns out it lists these people. There's not much information about Juan and Isabel de Aldana. And at this point, she finds a few things about Asensio and Maria. Turns out Asensio has a will and testament. And that will and testament is also in Bertha's book. You can read all sorts of information about how they lived and what they owned and everything that they were passing down to different people in the family. We learn a lot of information about that. They have a marriage certificate also in the church. In his witness, he lists a Gonzalo Dominguez, and his mother also being Marie Louise. And I'll put a Diaz out there too, because some records every so often will list her with a Diaz last name. Strange. In the burial certificate of Asensio, he mentions he's the residence of Elons, as in Calais Elons, as in we showed earlier in the map. He also mentions his son Juan. So it's important that we found Asensio Dominguez's will and testament, and they give the names of the parents at this point. He also mentions he was married twice. It turns out he inherited a small piece of what's known as Malvasia wine from his father. Here's a listing showing Asensio Dominguez in one of the reference documents that I had a researcher find for me. And you can see him listed in there. Here's a picture of the Malvasia wine, or vine in this case. Am I missing something here? No? Okay. And so at this point, we also know that Juana's also Dominguez as well. And without getting too much into her history and boring you too much in a very short meeting, I will just show you this chart, and it shows actually how they are cousins. And we can trace Manuel to Juan to Asensio, and as you can see, Asensio had a brother, Salvador. And it turns out, at some point, Juana and Manuel are cousins. It's also happened on the Hernandez side. I did not make a chart for that, but that also exists as well.